Hello, my name's Sebastian Morales, also known as the creative mind behind Aesthetique magazine. I wanted to start off this video I wanted to praise Taiyasui Sketch Pro. This app has made this whole entire process so much easier and has streamlined the whole thing. This app has folders that helps me keep things organized. It lets me be more creative with my project and lets me add things that I feel other programs wouldn't let me add. InDesign, for example, felt it wasn't very user friendly in my opinion and didn't feel like I could do much with it with what I knew about it. Photoshop, it was also very good, but it doesn't feel as fluid and as well put together as Tayasui. Tayasui really allowed me to stretch my creative muscle when creating aesthetic, as I was able to use tools such as the shape tool, as shown on screen currently, which lets me use hexagons to make text boxes, which then later were put into Photoshop, because Photoshop lets me create shapes with the pen tool and makes it into text boxes that I can later write in. Tayasui also has this amazing feature that lets me add pictures onto my canvases. And once I've added pictures, it really just comes together. Once the pictures are added, it starts looking more and more like a magazine. And though it doesn't offer the same tools as InDesign when it comes to actually creating, well, designs, it does let me let me put things where I want and when I want. So it's much simpler and more streamlined than any other thing I used. Also, using the different brush settings, I was able to create different letters, especially seeing where I put the page number, or even on the cover in some instances where I put things such as like it because it's pretty, why complicate it? I decided that adding words such as this, as shown on screen right now, would really make it seem more artistic rather than keeping it in a form that feels too streamlined or too much. Now, when it comes to following codes and conventions, I decided that my magazine wouldn't follow the same paths as other magazines. Therefore, my cover and most of the magazine looks more like an art magazine than it does a photograph magazine. However, that isn't true because my magazine focuses on the photography of things such as art and things that I found aesthetically pleasing that I thought other people would find aesthetically pleasing, especially seeing as how currently social media and, well, mostly social media and also, of course, television want to be as aesthetically pleasing as possible. Now, when it comes to challenging conventions, one magazine really stood out to me. Shutterbug is a photograph magazine that I would consider that really breaks the mold when it comes to changing things up, especially on the cover and in its issues. As you can tell that in the covers, the subject can go from a landscape to an animal to a model or anything that they can think of. I really believe that this helps capture that photography is more than just people and more than just what you can think of in a short notice. I believe that it really shows how deeply photography goes and how it can how it can go into very different parts of the world and society. So as time went on and I continued to work on my project, I noticed that I started to get new ideas and I started to want to change things. And you can really tell here how the beginning sketch really doesn't look much like the final product. And some of the pictures are even different, and there's less pictures too. And even the cover, as shown here, it began as this sketch, and there were many pictures I considered, but I ended up using this picture because I decided that it should be something bland that I could add to with my own expertise in creative artwork. However, as much as I love Toyosui and using it on a daily basis for my own personal projects, I really became good friends with Photoshop, and I really learned how to create using Photoshop much like other professionals use Photoshop for their own creations. I think Photoshop really pushed my creativity and was able to help my production skills develop over time, as I noticed that there were some things that I just couldn't do with Taiyasui. For example, the amount of fonts that Photoshop contains, Taiyasui doesn't even have a text option. And also the creation of the hexagonal text boxes is something that I figured would work really great for my magazine, as the text could then fit perfectly into the shapes that I had created previously on Taiyasui and would translate perfectly into Photoshop. Much like Shutterbug, I wanted Aesthetique to be able to reach the audience to reach a very specific audience. And since this is a photography magazine, I decided that it would be good to do a general photography magazine, as shown on the website right now. How it says that you should really be diverse and go into all aspects of the industry. And so I decided to do art photography, landscape photography, animal photography, and photography in general. And really, it also says to focus on being more than just a photographer, as that's not really everything there is to it. There's also complications such as editing, creating your own content, and also marketing, as you advertise yourself and you advertise what you create, and you have to receive what people say about your work, and you have to use it in the future, as in your future creations. So the real purpose behind the aesthetic is really just to look good with no real purpose. There really isn't any reason why these images are so captivating or so beautiful. They really just are because it catches the eye and they're beautiful to people, and I believe that makes it a really accessible magazine, and thus the audience feels very included because of the diversity of these pictures too, since it really just focuses on the raw beauty of these pictures. I don't have to feel jailed in by a certain topic or a certain model that I have to take pictures of. With this diversity, I feel that this magazine really captures more than one facet of photography. In the end, Aesthetic came out just the way I wanted it, but not too predictable. And really, I feel that that made the perfect product.